Yo, what's up? My name is Payne, and welcome to my channel where I try to become the best at Yu-Gi-Oh! Emphasis on try. This is another reaction video, and the video that I'm gonna be watching is from a popular Yu-Gi tuber named YuGiOh Everything, and I'm reacting to his video titled Ranking Every Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime Series. And for someone who's watched every single Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime series except for Sevens, I feel like it would be interesting to see his list and his reasoning for each show. And if he has Sevens in it, it'd be cool to kind of see like where he ranks it, because I've never watched Sevens before. But I wanted this to be kind of a little interactive, so this would be the perfect time to pause the video to think about what your list would be. But for me, it would be OG Yu-Gi-Oh, Zexel, 5Ds, because Yusei was in the hood, Arc 5, I think that's going to be controversial, GX, Vrains, and then Sevens, because I didn't watch Sevens. And that's my ranking. Make sure y'all put y'all ranking down in the comments below. I'm interested to see what you have. Well, that being said, that's enough yapping. Let's get to the reaction.
Since I started making Yu-Gi-Oh content, my most requested video has always been, how do I rank the shows? And for the first time since I started making Yu-Gi-Oh content in 2015, I am releasing my official rankings of Yu-Gi-Oh shows from worst to best.
That is okay. So Sevens gotta be the worst one, bro. There's no way. There's no way Sevens is better than the other ones.
Hello, everyone. It's Dylan from YuGiOh Everything, and welcome back to another video. Now, important disclaimer before I begin my official rankings. I genuinely do not believe there is a bad Yu-Gi-Oh show.
AKA, this list might piss off a lot of people.
And I know that's probably not accurate from a critical eye or a critical perspective, but I genuinely do feel that way. Okay. So even though I'm going to have some shows ranked 7th and 8th, it does not mean I think those shows are bad, just that there are other shows that I think are better. If you want more of a visual representation for how I feel regarding the 8 Yu-Gi-Oh shows, I think 2 Yu-Gi-Oh shows are A tier, 4 are B tier, and 2 are C tier. And the 2 that are C tier are just that. They're okay shows.
I think that's mad fair, bro. I feel like no matter what, none of the shows are like terrible. Like all the shows are pretty C and above. He's right.
I genuinely do not think they are bad or unwatchable. And I think every Yu-Gi-Oh series has its pros and cons, and you should give each and every one a watch. Another really important note, this is just my opinion. My opinion has the same weight as every single Yu-Gi-Oh fan out there. So as long as you respect my opinion, I will certainly respect yours. And for those that want clarification on which 8 shows we are ranking Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexel, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. And without further ado, here are my official Yu-Gi-Oh! series rankings.
There's no way Go Rush and Sevens is beating. The only one I could see them beating is Arc 5. That's it. There's no way that they're beating any of the other shows.
I hope you all enjoy. Number 8, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. Okay. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 kicks
that, I'm not gonna lie, that sucks, but I understand. I haven't seen the other 2 shows, so I can't like defend them. But Arc 5 is a good show though.
Off this list. And I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the things that I loved about Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. I think what Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 tried to do is the most ambitious project we have ever seen any Yu-Gi-Oh! attempt. By bringing in old settings and old characters and old worlds. It was like a boy's dream.
And that's why it's so hard to see as last, only because you're talking about the protagonist was the villain. That was tough. There was actual war across dimensions. That's tough. That's why seeing it in last is kind of crazy.
Come to life. If you know me, you know I love Easter eggs and callbacks to other shows.
And then they brought everybody back too. Like you can't last. Crazy.
It's something that I wish the many Yu-Gi-Oh series honestly did a little more. I love the fact that they tried to incorporate the past Yu-Gi-Oh history within Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, and I think it was the most ambitious plot and story we have ever seen. That being said, on the other side of that coin, I feel maybe they got a little too over their head. I don't know if the execution of the legacy characters were really all that well, and I feel like a lot of things that the early story of...
The only thing I really truly hated about Arc 5 was the voice acting for the villain, bro.
I overlay my 2 dark worms to build the overlay network.
Brother, what's that?
This shit was... I couldn't, bro. It was so annoying.
Arc 5 were building up to were never actually expanded on and executed in a satisfying way. One of the biggest issues I have with Arc 5 is the fact that we never got the U-Boy and Bracelet Girl interactions. I think it was a massive missed opportunity that we never really saw Rin, YuGiOh, YuToh, Ruri all have these reunion scenes and interactions. I know YuGiOh and Rin had, you know, a 5-second reunion, but I'm sorry, that's not enough. Something that was so special.
I feel like that would have been tough to have the reunion, but like still.
With early Arc 5 was the mystery surrounding the 4 U-Boys and the 4 Bracelet Girls, and I just feel like the execution and payoff with those characters were very underwhelming. And something Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 really excelled at in the beginning was its character-driven interactions and mysteries. I loved the mystery of Shun and YuToh and Akaba Reiji and Yuri looming in the back.
And the side characters were... I feel like with Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes it's easy to have a really good protagonist. The side characters are included so much that like you gotta make them memorable and cool too.
Background. And I feel like once we got to Synchro, they really shied away from what made Arc 5 such a special show at the start by locking all of the characters in these rooms during the Synchro arc and purposefully preventing the interaction between these characters that made the show so special early on. Arc 5's got some amazing dueling quality, but unfortunately, down the road, there were a lot of things that left me very disappointed and a lot of head-scratching narrative decisions. I'm not even going to spend too much time on the Zark stuff, but I really wasn't a fan of how that was handled and that we never really got, like, backstory between Zark and Ray. I mean, we kind of did, but
it was
not enough
rushed
for him to be the main villain. And then we had like a weird 8 episodes at the end. Don't even get me started on the Battle Beast. I feel like Arc 5 had an incredibly great start, but disappointed me down the stretch. All in all, I genuinely don't think Arc 5 is like unwatchable or even a bad show. It's just a disappointing show that I felt could have been one of the greatest. But for me, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 is at the bottom of my list.
I love how it started, but the ending was kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't bad, but it was like, how we get here?
Number 7, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Ooh, what? You're telling me that 7s and the Gold Rush is better than G? The only thing I can see him saying negative about GX is the fact that it was like that GX was supposed to be like funnier and more lighthearted and all that other stuff. I can see, this is crazy.
This will probably be the most divisive ranking on this list, as I know GX has many super fans, and
but GX is also low on my list.
Honestly can see the appeal. GX has always been a really strange experience for me because I absolutely love the final 80 or so episodes of this show. But just for me personally, the first 100 episodes are very forgettable and just a tough watch to get through. Judai as a character is one of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonists, and two things can be true. You can love the main protagonist from a show, but not be able to connect with the side characters as much.
Exactly. Bro, GX, like, I feel like GX has a pretty good side characters, but like, other than what, Silas and Chaz, who else can you know what I mean? Like, everybody else was cool too. I guess your side characters was like, eh.
much and feel like the side characters were kind of neglected. And even being a massive Judai fan, I will be the first to tell you, he probably could have taken a back seat in some of the duels. I mean, it's insane how many one-off duels this guy got. And maybe if you let characters like Sho or Asuka or Manjome have some more duels and some more character development, I would have felt differently. There are other characters in GX I really love. Johan and O'Brien are two that come to mind immediately. Yubel is another one, but it just further demonstrates my problems with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. All three characters that I just named outside of Judai don't show up in the story until like episode 100. And so if you have to wait 100 episodes before you get to the characters that really, really make the show memorable outside of the main protagonist, I think that's a pretty big problem. True. Just looking at the first season, the Shadow Riders to me were all very forgettable. I think Kagimaru is actually one of the most underwhelming and worst final season villains in you.
With the Sacred Beast, bro, I watched it and I was like, that's it? I'm like, what else?
Yu-Gi-Oh! History. Sayu was slightly better, but the Society of Light stuff was, for me, okay at best. I do see the appeal with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX because, again, the final 80 or so episodes are incredible. And I think if you're someone who doesn't mind the overemphasis on the slice of life stuff that we get early in the show, and you really, really actually love early GX, you probably rate GX very highly, and I think that's a very fair take to have. But for me personally, those first 100 episodes are just very forgettable outside of some of the Judai stuff, and yeah, I just am not the biggest fan. And so for that reason, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX comes in at number 7.
Because I pretty much agreed with all of that. There's no way that it has to be 7s or Gold Rush. There's no way that it's above any of the other ones.
Number 6, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s.
Okay.
As much as it would have been hilarious to put Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s
that would have been crazy. That would have been crazy.
7th, I couldn't fully play into the meme because I've got to be honest with how I rank these shows, and I feel like 6th is fair for Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s really shines in its characterization, and what I mean by that is the main group of characters, Yuga, Luke, Roman, and Gakuto, are absolutely wonderful to watch. The interactions that these four have are absolutely incredible and really carry the...
Have you guys seen this? If this is a good show, let me know down in the comments because I have no idea.
Show, in my opinion. And then when you form the wider group, which is kind of the big 7 as I call them, and you add Asana, Nail, and Roa, the group gets even bigger and better. And I think those main 7...
Bro, I just think his ace, look at him. I just think his ace does not look cool to me, bro. It just looks okay. Like,
characters really, really shine. I think the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s is good, but I think the one element of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s that I absolutely hated was the villains. I genuinely feel Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s has the worst villains in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And villains are very important. And I just feel like there were a lot of times with 7s where you...
But to have it over, if that's the case, to have it over GX or 5, Arc 5, if it has the worst villains, I don't know. If that's the case, I would have put that behind GX.
You didn't feel the same stakes or pressure as you would feel in a different Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. And I'm not talking about like Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, right, where every single duel has to be this life or death matter. I actually liked that the vibe was more laid back in 7s, but I wish we had more of those serious threats, and Otis being the final villain of that show was certainly a letdown. Now, we're not done talking about Otis because he has a huge role to play in Go Rush, but I enjoyed Otis a lot more in Go Rush than I did in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, and so just judging him in the scope of 7s, he's not a very good villain. And then when you had potentially good villains like a YuGiOh or a Gohai Yuga, they would be villainous and threatening for maybe about 3 to 4, maybe 5 episodes, and then they'd either be redeemed or they would just not really be an actual threat anymore. Take Nail, for instance. He has this amazing moment where he maximum summons against YuGiOh and strikes fear into the heart of our entire cast in what's an amazing moment in the story. But only 4 episodes later, he is on YuGiOh's side and basically
I
is
ain't gonna lie, that's kind of crazy. You can't have the villain join the team every time, bro. You gotta let the villain be the villain
with everyone. And I don't hate that, but I just wish there were more genuine threats that lasted longer in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, and that's kind of why 7s is pushed down a little bit. It's certainly not the...
It sounds like 7 should have been last.
Weakest Yu-Gi-Oh! Show, in my opinion, and the main 4 really do prevent it from being the weakest show because those characters were absolutely incredible. I just wish some of the side stuff was a little more intense.
The next one gotta either be Gold Rush or Vrains. There's no way.
Number 5, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. So
Damn, so Gold Rush is better than Vrains?
I'm going to be honest with you guys. My 3, 4, and 5, I have gone back and forth with a lot. In fact, if I recorded this video a few months ago, Vrains was probably 3rd for me.
Vrains is actually pretty good. I thought it was pretty cool. I did like the fact that it was like every duel just felt like a life or death situation.
3, 4, and 5, these next 3 shows are very, very close and pretty interchangeable. But I have Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains coming in at number 5, and that's not all the fault of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. Sure, every Yu-Gi-Oh! Series has production issues, but I don't know if there was a series as cursed as Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, but we have to judge Vrains based on the content that we've gotten, and Vrains really suffered from recap hell very early on in the show. The 3rd season was basically just...
The recaps was crazy.
Cut by like 24 episodes as it ended pretty abruptly, and I really was not a fan of that 3rd season. Another thing that Vrains, in my opinion, did a little too much of and not enough of was intense life or death duels and not enough like slice of life relaxed.
Yeah, every duel was a life or death duel, bro. I fuck with it, but I understand what he's saying too.
Stuff to the point where every time we got a slice of life thing, like Yusaku and Aoi on the bench, the Vrains fandom would erupt because we were like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what we want. But looking back on it, it really was just the team sprinkling breadcrumbs when they could have given us a whole loaf of slice of life stuff that would have really balanced the intensity of the duels, which I feel like is what kind of puts Vrains a little back for me at the number 5 spot. That being said, though, I really did enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. One of my favorite elements of Vrains was the storyline regarding the danger of artificial intelligence. And boy, oh boy, Vrains was ahead of their time. When you look around with what's going on regarding AI in the real world now, and you go back and watch Vrains, I would argue it hits even harder.
It took me so long to get into watching Vrains, but once I like really started watching it, I was like, oh, that shit fire.
And a character that I actually agreed with in the 1st season in terms of needing to put a control on AI because of its danger and its potential. Of course, the way he went about it was, you know, very intense, and the means I didn't really agree with, but I thought the Revolver Playmaker dynamic was really good. I ended up actually really enjoying Soulburner, who...
It did introduce some cool ass archetypes. I'm not gonna lie to you.
At the beginning of his introduction, I didn't really love all that much, but by the end of Vrains, he was one of my favorite characters. The journey of I thought was really good, but Vrains just had too many dropped storylines, too many production problems, which, again, I know is not really the fault of the show, but when you're looking and judging a show, those 4 recaps in the first, like, 39 episodes.
And I like the character designs, too. They were tough.
We have to judge it. Those really bad, drawn-out Link animations, we have to judge it. And I think if Vrains just better balanced serious stakes with more slice-of-life stuff, the show would have been much higher on this list. But again, I think it's a good show overall, and it comes in at number 5. Number 4.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say it got to be Go Rush.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. When Go Rush ended, I actually thought it was going to kind of land in that number 3 spot, but the reason I wanted to wait a little bit after Go Rush's ending was so any recency bias would potentially leave, and I could judge the show from a less emotional angle. And even doing that, it didn't really drop all that much for me, and I think number 4 is really fair. Go Rush is a beautifully told space opera, and the characters of Go
Rush is good like that?
Are absolutely incredible. While I wasn't in love immediately with the idea of the characters all kind of being variants of the Seven's characters, I kind of got used to it pretty quickly and ended up actually really enjoying that element. I think what Go Rush tried to do was a little less ambitious than Arc 5, but still one of the more ambitious storytelling stories that we have gotten in a Yu-Gi-Oh anime, by trying to be an interquill, which is a show that acts as a prequel and a sequel at the same time. They certainly had their work cut out for them in order to not screw up the timeline and the continuity all that badly. And while there are certainly things that you can kind of nitpick, which is totally understandable, I think for the most part the stuff they did made a lot of sense. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush's final episode is actually one of the greatest final Yu-Gi-Oh! Episodes we've ever gotten. The problem with me regarding Go Rush is that final season is a little wonky, and there were certainly decisions made that kind of made me question what was actually going on here. And I think something that the Rush shows really struggled with was jamming the entire plotline, storyline drops in like the final 3 episodes. And I feel like if they did a better job of balancing the plotline drops between, you know, the 13 episode formulaic arcs that we got throughout the arc rather than all at the end, I think that would have been a less predictable and a more balanced way to drop big plot points and tell the story in, again, a more unpredictable way. But early Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush is incredible.
Bro, we need another Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, please, Konami.
Shame that Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush was not done by Studio Gallop, because if it was, YuGiOh would be considered maybe the greatest rival in all of Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially for the beginning parts. You know, I didn't really love what they did with him in that final season, but again, YuGiOh and Udius, the dynamic the two of them had was absolutely incredible. I loved the fact that there were cryptids that were referenced. I'm a huge cryptozoology guy, so that was really cool. And yeah, I just think it was a very emotional, charged story that worked, and not as ambitious as Arc 5, but certainly don't.
I gotta check this out, bro, because there's no way.
Don't want to undermine what they tried to do by writing an interquill, which is extremely, extremely challenging. And I think for the most part, it worked. Otis not getting explained maybe prevents this show from being higher. Had they explained Otis in a really good, comprehensive way, you know, I think I would have really loved it. But the villains of Go Rush were certainly much better than the villains of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. And so Go Rush comes in at number 4.
We're down to the top 3. I think so what, that's OG Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexel and 5Ds. That was my top 3. I think three gotta be 5Ds. No! 3 gotta be 5Ds.
Number 3, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters.
I can't be mad at it.
So the OG Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes in the bronze medal.
Like, I say as a whole, I don't know, bro. Season 2 of OG Yu-Gi-Oh! Was crazy. I don't think 5Ds ever topped that. Not gonna lie.
Medal spot. And I had told you if I did this a few months ago, I probably would have had Vrain's number 3. Well, I've had DM as low as number 5 before in my mind. And again, if I made this video back in April, I had DM actually in 5th, funny enough. But after thinking about it, watching it, you know, studying it a little more, I think the original show does deserve to be number 3. Now, the original show is always really an interesting discussion because you have fans who only view Duel Monsters as like the only true Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, and everything after it is garbage, which is a really, really for lack of a better word, dumb take. And then you have people that I think have kind of swung a little too far on the other side of the pendulum where they love the Yu-Gi-Oh spin-off shows and they get so aggravated by how the Gen 1ers comment on their show that now they have a great vitriol and hate for the original show. But trying to like sort through all of the hate and the discussion and the back and forth between...
That don't even make sense to me, bro. Some people stop at certain shows, man. At the end of the day, you like what you like.
Between the Gen 1ers and the diehard spin-off fans, I really do think Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters is still one of the better Yu-Gi-Oh! Series overall. While it's obviously not the best in my opinion, I do think it has the best cast of villains. Kazuki Takahashi was an absolute genius when it came to writing villains. Pegasus, S tier. Yami Bakura, S tier. Yami Marek, I think the greatest villain in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So S+++ tier. Combined with the fact that you had some of
That's what I'm saying. Season 2 was so crazy.
Greatest and most memorable arcs ever in Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters is an incredible show. For those wondering maybe why it's not 1 or 2, well, I'll tell you why. The filler actually really harms the show for me. The stuff that happens between Duelist Kingdom and Battle City is a drag. Putting Noah's Virtual World arc between the Battle City quarterfinals and the Battle City semifinals might be the worst filler arc placement you could have had.
Like, that's some like Bleach type of fucking filler arc.
had in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters storyline. I mean, that is just a crazy, crazy decision, but it was a necessary evil because the anime was getting to a point where it was catching up with the manga, so it's just unfortunate. I've said many, many times, if Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters was a one-to-one adaptation or a close to one-to-one adaptation of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters would be, bar none, the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime ever. And I truly mean that. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga is an absolute masterpiece. But because of the filler, Doma, I haven't really talked about. Doma, I think, is okay. I think it's the best filler that we got. The KC Grand Prix, I don't mind that much, but those arcs are back-to-back, so you have two filler arcs back-to-back. Yeah, it's just too much filler. But man, the villains, Yami Yugi, the story, I think when you just take a look at the quality of the original show, it still holds up, and it deserves to come in at number 3.
It's either 5Ds or Zexel. If we're looking at the entirety of Zexel, I would have to put, if that's the case, Zexel got to be number 1.
Number 2, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexel. Yu-Gi-Oh!
What? Yo, the Barian arc? Goated. Bro. Crazy.
Zexel is one of 2 A-tier Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows in my opinion, and isn't really too far from being, in my opinion, the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. And if you want to say it's the best, I probably wouldn't really argue too much with you. Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexel was the original Rush Yu-Gi-Oh! And what I mean by that is it was the original Yu-Gi-Oh! That got so much hatred from people who really never gave it.
But it was so good, bro. Like, season 1 was cool. Season 2 was good. Then you got the
a fair chance. But for the people that have watched the original subbed version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexel all the way through, I know a majority of people feel it's one of the best shows, and that is something that I really couldn't agree with more. At its core, Zexel is a story about growth, redemption, and the power of believing in oneself in the face of overwhelming odds. Something I actually loved about the main protagonist, Yuma, is he started as a really incompetent...
Facts. Like, he started from being ass at the game to literally becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! God, bro.
Duelist. And I love that through Astral and through his experiences, he became like a Super Saiyan level duelist, literally, by the end of the series. And I think he's got one of the best growth arcs we have probably seen any Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist have in the entire franchise. His bond with Astral forms the emotional backbone of the
and then you can see Astral like slowly like understanding how he always looked at everything from just a straight logical perspective, and then you saw Astral like start to actually like understand like more of like human connection. Bro, this shit was just fire, bro.
Series as it evolves from a reluctant partnership into an actual heartfelt friendship that culminates in one of the most powerful endings in any Yu-Gi-Oh, where the two of them have to duel and Yuma has to basically let go of Astral and say goodbye as he goes back to Astral World. I think Zexel's biggest strength lies in its character writing. While Yuma and Astral's dynamic is amazing, Yuma also has one of the best rivalries ever with Shark. Shark and Yuma's dynamic from the very start of the show to the very end of the show is one that really deserves its own video, and I've been working on that video, and I promise it'll be out at some point. But their dynamic is incredible, and then you add characters like Kaito, the Arclight family, haven't even gotten to the Baryons yet. Zexel is so character driven that it is absolutely amazing how many great characters there are. Zexel actually has a kind of similar issue as GX does, where it takes a little bit to get going, but it doesn't take nearly as long to get going. And really, once Kaito is introduced in the early teens, the show just picks up from there. It's got great references to DM and GX. The World Duel Carnival arc is an incredible, incredible arc with the Arclight family at the forefront. And I love that there were always multiple different overarching storylines going on.
Character designs was dope. The mechanic that it brought was crazy at the time. The archetypes, like it was just beautiful.
Whether it was through the World Duel Carnival with the Arclights and Kite's family, or the Baryon arc where the Baryons were involved with Yuma and Don Thousand was kind of doing his own thing, and, you know, Nash Shark was also doing his own thing, and you didn't actually know which route those characters were going to go and which side those characters were going to end up being on. And the Baryon Onslaught arc is one of the greatest.
And it was, bro, the Baryons, bro, even though that they were evil, some of the Baryons was like, damn, like maybe what we doing isn't good. And it was like conflict. You ain't know which side everybody was on. It was
arcs in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's unbelievable how good that arc was and how amazing some of those death scenes were. Some of the best death scenes in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! The stakes are incredible. I think the only reason Zexel is slightly below my #1 series is I wasn't a big fan of, like, the Numbers Club, and I felt like Zexel 2 got off to, you know, an okay-ish start. I honestly feel like both parts of Zexel got off to just okay-ish starts, but man, when Zexel hits, Zexel hits. Again, it really could be the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. For me,
I think it should have been #1.
Out, but it's an A tier.
I think it should have been #1, not gonna lie.
Show, and it deserves to be this high. It's #2 for me.
Alright, now we finna listen to this man talk about Yusei getting out the hood.
#1, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. I believe that Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds is the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh! series we have ever.
And 5Ds has one of the best intros out of all the shows too.
Forgotten. I've always been a major fan of 5Ds, and I think it's just an incredible story thanks to its gripping narrative, mature tone, and has some of the most fleshed out characters in a dystopian future where social class division is front and center, and it tells a story that's much deeper than just card games. It's about rebellion, identity, and fighting for a better world. The show's setting, split between New Domino City and the impoverished satellite, provides a really good backdrop for the narrative and highlights the themes of inequality and justice in a really profound way. That has always been one of my favorite elements of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. The classism aspect, which is a really tricky aspect to deal with, always blew me away because at the end of the day, this is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, and they're tackling a super mature theme like that in such a classy and really impactful way. And at the heart of 5Ds, of course, is your protagonist, Yusei Fudo, who is one of my favorite protagonists in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! He's calm, he's calculating, he's incredibly selfless, and he just embodies the spirit of a hero. 5Ds gets off to an incredible start thanks to the Fortune Cup arc, which is a stellar way to introduce characters and a stellar tournament overall.
Bro, and then not only that, Jack was an asshole in the beginning, bro. This man, number one, he stole Yusei's card. Then he turned his back on the whole hood. He was up there with them rich people, turned his back, and then Yusei still whooped his ass.
And then we go right into the Dark Signers arc, which, in my opinion, is probably the greatest arc in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark
Signers was alright. I like the Dark Signers. It was cool. It was cool. I don't know if it was the best one at all of them, but Dark Signers was good.
Signers arc is just absolutely incredible. I genuinely do not think there is a bad duel in that arc. And the rivalries that build for not just Yusei, but for all of the signers, Jack, Aki, Crow, Ruka, Rua, all made sense, were all impactful, and it all culminated in an epic 3-on-1 duel against Rex Godwin. Now, as I've said before, I think every series has its flaw. 5Ds I have at the top is no different, and I'll talk about the one big flaw with 5Ds. The stuff right after the Dark Signers arc in the first season really kind of flounders a little bit. It kind of reminds me actually of GX, where there's a lot of one-off characters and one-off duels, and the storyline is a little weak, and you can kind of tell they didn't really know where to go for a little bit. But
because then when they started getting into like the time stuff, I was like, all right, where are we going with this, bro?
As we get to Crash Town, where we see the culmination of the journey of Kiryu, one of my favorite characters in 5Ds, I feel like the show gets its footing back. The World Racing Grand Prix is a really underrated arc and tournament that, while not as good as the Fortune Cup, is still one of the better tournament arcs I think we've ever gotten in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. And then the Neo arc, Cradle arc. To anybody that says 5Ds should have ended after Dark Signers, please rewatch this arc. This arc has some of the most impactful death scenes and impactful duels, maybe in the entire franchise, certainly within Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. It's an incredible...
And them duels was good, too. It was...
finale arc, and the whole show just blends dark lore, emotional stakes, and really stunning duels in a nearly flawless package. And besides that one little stretch right after the Dark Signers arc and before Crashdown, 5Ds is almost like a perfect show. I know I'm really singing its praises here, but from its unforgettable soundtrack to its bold storytelling choices, 5Ds is one of the most mature and thought-provoking shows that embraced risk, depth, and drama in ways that no other Yu-Gi-Oh! Quite matched. It's not just a great Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, it's a standout anime, period, and a shining example of how amazing stories can be told even through a vehicle like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. And that wraps it up, ladies and
honestly, I feel like his list was pretty good. When you start getting up to the top 3, it's always, you can interchange them. I feel like I do think that saying that 7s is better than GX or Arc 5 is kind of crazy in my eyes. That was my reaction and my own ranking of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. If you stayed to the end, I greatly appreciate it. And if you fuck with the video, leave a like and a comment. And if you really fuck with the video, make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500. Let's see if we can get to it. And with that being said, I appreciate y'all. Y'all be safe, and until next time, peace.